Hopefully you get it the
Hey,
first time,
Doug.
then we don't have to do it.
Yeah, that's true. Yeah.
Hey, explain to some of the new turners about twice turn bowls, because if they're doing a blank and gonna dry it, that outside finish would be fine for a twice turn bowl. And then they
Yes.
could just go to the inside.
Yeah, so what we could actually take this thing off right now. Let's say this was a green bowl. It's gonna warp over time. We want to reduce the warping and reduce the cracking. So there's a few different methods out there. Some people will reseal this just the way it is. They write the date that they turned it, throw it up on the shelf. You can take it out once a week, once a month, whatever you feel like, and you can weigh it. When it stops changing weight, you've gotten all the moisture you're going to get out of it. Another option, you take this bowl, you grab some of your shavings, put some on the bottom of a paper bag, then put the bowl on top of the shavings, then continue to cover the bowl with the shavings. Again, you pull it out every week, 2 weeks, 3 weeks, a month, you weigh it. Once it no longer is changing weight, then you've gotten all the moisture out. The other method, I keep saying I'm going to try this, and I haven't done it myself, but I've seen plenty of other people do it successfully, is the microwave. I can take this bowl once I'm done, when it's at this stage, while it's green, stick it in the microwave. Very quick speeds. I don't think I've ever seen somebody do it for more than about 30 seconds. Pull it out, it'll be steaming hot. You got to let it cool off, and it's pulling all that moisture out. It's got to sit for like probably an hour, unless somebody on here has done it shorter than that. But in my local club, that's what they teach. 30 seconds, take it out for an hour, throw it back in for 30 seconds, let it set for an hour. And it's just pulling all the moisture out. And again, once it stops changing weight, getting lighter, then you've gotten as much moisture out of it as you can get. Does anybody have any other methods for their twice turn bowls?
I wrote up my microwave process, and it is in our on our website somewhere in the files section.
Okay.
I microwave always at 50%. And I have sometimes microwaved a piece for as long as 7 minutes at 50%, depending on how wet they are. In general, I put them in a paper bag and then put them in the microwave and microwave them. Paper bag helps control the rate at which the moisture leaves the wood more evenly.
Okay.
But like I said, I've written that all up, and it's in a PDF on our website. Dave's put it up there somewhere. So if you want to pursue the microwave process, it's all written up for you.
Yep.
Awesome. And like I said, I haven't done it myself, but I've seen lots of other turners do it really successful. So I just haven't found the time where my wife wasn't home where I could bring a piece of wood in the kitchen yet.
Yeah, rule number one on my microwave process is don't use the microwave in your kitchen. There's a couple reasons. Number one, the whole house will smell like wet wood, no matter how hard you try. And number two, if it does catch fire, it's really hard to unplug a built-in microwave and throw it out in the backyard.
So one of the guys in my local club, when he was telling us about it, his microwave was in his garage. He pushed 30 seconds, ran in the house to grab his cup of coffee, used the bathroom, came back out thinking the microwave's definitely off. Oops, he pushed 3 minutes and his garage was full of smoke. So it happens.
Not good.
Yeah, the other thing, Doug, you could use is desiccant beads.
Oh, that's the like rice, right? It's similar to rice where it pulls the moisture out.
No, it's little BBs, like when you get stuff packed in a shipment and you get those little packets of desiccant in a little bag. You can buy those by the gallon, and you can put your pieces in there. The desiccant will draw the moisture out. Once the beads get so much moisture, they will quit drying it. At that point, you can lay them back on a cookie sheet, stick them in your oven at 250 degrees, dry them back out, and stick your piece back in it again.
There we go. Another option.
Hey Doug, a quick question. If you're talking about twice turn bowl, do you need to flip that around and hollow it out to a certain degree or not?
I think what I've seen most is people will, if they're gonna turn it, they will turn it to, I think, maybe half an inch or so, and then put it in the bag.
You want it thicker than
Folks,
that,
let's-
3/4 to,
Let's
3/4 of
continue
an inch to an
the
inch.
let's continue the conversation about twice turned after the demo.
Can we go back to the discussion on twice turned?
Sure.
Just a question in regard, is it worth twice turning? Or is it better just take a green chunk of wood and turn it down thin enough that you basically get the moisture out of it quick enough that you don't, hopefully don't get the cracks in it, or it may warp a little bit, but otherwise, I mean, if you're going to twice turn it, how thick do you leave it?
What was the question?
Well, earlier we talked about twice turning.
Yeah,
know,
yeah, right.
And so I said, well, do you have to hollow it out to twice turn it? And if you're going to hollow it out, once you get the outside kind of to the rough shape that you want, how thick do you leave it? Or is it worth even doing twice turn, or do you just turn it down thin enough that the moisture comes out of it and hopefully it doesn't crack?
No, about an inch.
It depends upon what the end game is. So most people do twice turned, and so they will. There's I believe it's 110% of the final wall dimension is the twice turned wall thickness, and you still want to have that consistency from the rim to the base, and then you seal the end grain.
Okay. Okay.
Hopefully on the outside, that way it dries through the inside. And then, folks, set it up and either put it into to a makeshift kiln, or they set it up on the shelves, proper air circulation, and come back to it, a year later.
So what do most you people do out there? Do you, if you got green wood, you just turn it down to about 1/4 inch and hope for the best?
No, I turn it to final dimension and I'm good to go. So I turn, so greenwood for me out in Arizona, where I live in Tucson, I turn to final dimension of less than 5/16 of an inch.
And while you're doing
knock
that,
on wood, and and that's my final project. I start to finish.
okay. And so my question is that with green wood like that, if you're getting it down to the final dimensions, that's probably going back to what you're saying, is that once you get the final dimension up on the edges, you don't go back there because it's moving on you all the time.
Yes.
Correct. And
Okay.
it will move on you out, out in the islands off of South Carolina.
Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah, I do the same. I
And
do
when
the
the
same
boat,
here.
yeah, okay, go ahead.
I do the same here in Michigan. Most of my natural edge pieces I turn wet, and I turn to final dimensions on the first pass, and I'm turning to less than 1/4 of an inch thick, usually 1/8 of an inch or so.
Yep.
So yeah, and
Okay.
some amount of warpage is acceptable, but exactly what everybody's been saying. You turn to the rim, and then you work, and you don't come back to it. You work down into the center of the bowl.
So there's not that many people do twice turned anymore. Is that what it's?
Oh, I do it all the time.
No, I do too.
Don't know.
I got shells,
There's a lot of-
full blanks drying. It
Okay.
depends. Now, when you turn a green bowl to finish size, you're gonna expect it when it's done drying, the wood's gonna move on you.
No, not
So-
necessarily.
Well,
Depends upon the
Well,
wood.
hey.
it's on the
Depends
wood.
upon the wood. It depends upon the climate.
Yeah, Dane, I think you're in a drier climate. You have drier wood.
Yes.
Yes.
Right.
But,
Well, and so I will say this, so I've brought cherry back from here in eastern Kentucky and southeast Ohio, poplar and ash, and I bring it back in log form, and I'll process my wood, the blank that I am going to cut off that log, and start to finish that day. It will be a final project. And I don't have, the warpage or the cracking that other folks may have. And so I go down incrementally, no more than an inch. I keep my center mass. I take that center mass down as I'm going down. I am very diligent. I stop, I measure to make sure that I'm at my 1/4 inch or less wall thickness. And if I'm making a 13-inch bowl, I'm at 5/16. That's the as I've evolved, that's the largest thickness walled bowl I make is a 5/16, but it's going to be a larger diameter vessel, 13 inches and higher. That's 5/16 of an inch. And I use my calipers and I measure down, each inch I'm going down to make sure I'm there. I got my final pristine cut and I don't touch it again. Remove the stock. I leave my life center there as long as possible with that center mass there. As I'm going down, I remove and make that center cone, because there's no wood in between it and the wall. So I'm not concerned about it because I've already got my wall thickness. And then once I get down to the bottom, when I've got maybe an inch and a half left in the bottom of the vessel, and primarily that's already after I've made that transition from the wall to the bottom, that's when my live center and tailstock goes away. So, but that's how I do it.
Okay.
And so with my vessels, I don't experience that because of my wall thickness, and I am adamant about making sure I am consistent between, especially the rim, and I don't have sharp corners on the rim because sharp corners are prone to cracking. And at the same time on that transition, if you leave that thick, you're going to create a crack just above that transition because there's uneven moisture coming out of that.
But basically, if you want your finished product to be round and not move, you need to twice turn it, generally speaking. All wood's going to move to some degree. Some moves more than others. But if you want a finished product that's round, you need to twice turn it. And I do very little twice turning. I do almost everything from green all the way to finish. But it will move on you. And depend on the shape that you have, whether it's really obvious or not.
Where I live, if I turn something
marginal.
green, even if it's really thin, it's going to move. It's just the climate I live in. And the woods I use the local woods here, so that has an effect on it too. But if I rough turn it and let them dry it and then finish turning them, they hardly move if they move at all. So
so I in the past, go ahead, Martin.
I'm going to jump in and play devil's advocate because you're both right. One of the best ways of not getting your balls to move is to make sure that your wall thicknesses and your bottoms are the same uniformed amount right through the bowl. It's less likely to warp or distract. Twice turning is also perfect for it. Leave it thick enough, it will slowly dry, then you can go back to it and you can turn it and you can get it round, like you say, Dave. Exactly. But how many times have I've used kiln dried timber, turned a bowl, and I can tell you now that it will go oblong because the tree wants it to go oblong. It might only move a few millimeters, but ultimately it will get some movement. So I think both of you are right, and there isn't a right or a wrong way to do it. If you're going to twice turn it, I know guys that have hundreds of balls. Mike Mahoney over your side of the pond there, he turns 50 or 60, just calls them out, throws them aside, lets them dry, then goes back to them. So it works both ways. And I've seen that done, Dane, but you've got to be a good turner to get that wall right to not get too much movement.